With Mitch Marner on his wing, will Jack Eichel be the superstar we expect him to be this fantasy season? We'll talk all about it on today's show. Let's get this.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, my fantasy fanatics? Another week. We inch closer to fantasy hockey draft season, and another team in our league-wide breakdown is off the board with the Vegas Golden Knights on today's show. Welcome back inside the lab, and shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. We see you, we appreciate you, and we are here all August long, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can find brand new episodes, and Steele and I will return to 5 episodes a week in September, just in time to make sure you're ready to dominate that draft season. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Make sure you're checking out Monarch Money today to take control of your finances. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com/LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. Steele, we've talked a lot about Mitch Marner over the last couple of years, but we have yet to talk about what this means for the fantasy value of other players, what it means for the Vegas Golden Knights. This team is shaping up to take another deep run at a cup, in my opinion, Steele, and there is a lot to like on this team. So, very intriguing top end of this list. The 5-4-3 slots, little bit in flux, I would say. Good players. Don't know who you have in your list. I'm intrigued. Over to you, my friend. Top 5 Vegas targets. Let's get after it.
I like this team a lot, and there's so much to like when it comes to fantasy hockey value, especially with the top 2 guys when we get to them later in the episode. But even when you talk about some streaming options, you look at some guys who have stepped up over the last couple of years. His first season, Pavel Dorofeyev had an elite season last year, playing close to all 82 games, 30-plus goal season, playing on the top line with a guy like Jack Eichel. So he had to be an honorable mention, and I still think he's going to bring a ton of value to your fantasy hockey team. I know you are a big fan of Ivan Barbashev as a streaming option or potentially as a late-round draft pick. He's a very good banger league beauty as well. Brings the physical aspect. He goes to the nitty-gritty areas. So those 2 guys would be my honorable mention alongside Tomas Hertl. He doesn't make the top 5 for me. It was very close, but I had to go with my boy, Shea Theodore, at the number 5 position here. To me, he is one of the best defensemen in the league. He has that offensive mindset, who jumps into the play, who's able to produce in the offensive zone. And when he is on, to me, Theodore is a top 10 fantasy defenseman and easily one of the smoothest skaters at his position. I've seen him multiple times go end-to-end with the puck, create plays out of nothing. He's one of my favorite defensemen, but the problem with him is he has struggled to stay healthy throughout most of his career. He hasn't played more than he hasn't played more than 67 games in the last 3 years. He has struggled with injury every single season. He's never played a full 82-game regular season for the Vegas Golden Knights or his time in the National Hockey League. So that is the negative aspect, the downside of what Shea Theodore is. You never know if he's going to get injured, which he seems to be. Again, from our boy Blake Creamer, you can't predict injuries, but with this player, it's a pretty good assumption that he's going to get injured at one point. However, I still think he brings elite fantasy hockey value as a defenseman. Career high 57 points last season in only playing 67 games. 7 goals, 50 assists, 128 shots, 82 blocks. If he can even get close to playing 82 games, which his best was in 2021, 2022, where he played 78 games. He still had 52 points. He had over 200 shots, close to 100 blocks, 50 hits as well. I think he brings a ton of fantasy value, and especially now with Alex Pietrangelo out of the lineup, and we don't know what's going on with his career specifically, but with him out of the lineup, Shea Theodore is the number 1 guy on the power play, quarterbacking that elite unit. Eichel, Marner, Stone, Dorofeyev as well. Again, misses 20 games on the regular, it seems like, but when he's healthy, I think this is a defenseman that can put up 70 points in the regular season. Again, 57 points in 67 games. That's on pace for close to 70. I think he brings elite value. That's why he comes in at number 5 for me.
I'm a little bit surprised, given your love for peripheral category love, that Thomas Hertl doesn't make your list. I'll talk about him at the number 4 slot. However, Shea Theodore for me, offensively, I totally agree with you. Top 10. I like his game. You mentioned the smooth skating and his ability to put up a career high last year. Banged up is the MO with this guy. So for me, he had to come in at the 5 spot as well. I agree with you when it comes to that high end ability from a rear guard to put up almost a point per game type player. And I don't think he's getting 80 plus points this upcoming season, but I don't think 65 to 70 is out of his realm if he stays healthy, and that makes him very fantasy relevant. I would not put him in the top 10 in overall fantasy defenseman, but he is right there at maybe the 14th or 15th slot. We'll talk all about the top 10, top 15 D-men as we head closer to draft season. I'm giving honorable mention to Mark Stone. I'm giving honorable mention to Pavel Dorofeyev. And the reason Mark Stone doesn't make my list is very similar to why Shea Theodore isn't higher up the list. The injury risk is just far too high for me personally. I understand that he is, speaking of point per game player, kind of some similarities here with Theodore and Mark Stone. Actually, Thomas Hertl has dealt with some injuries himself during the last couple of years of his career. So these players, I think, Steele, for the most part, you're going to see them go like 7th to 9th round, maybe even 6th to 9th round. And I'm going to throw in a couple of other players that we get there. This team is really good. Let's be clear. And we're going to talk about the impact of Mitch Marner. So if we're going to buy into this team returning to being a Stanley Cup threat, then I think we can say safely that there is a boost in value perhaps coming all around here. Aiden Hill's value might see a bump as well. I really do like Pavel Dorofeyev, just to kind of circle around all the players that were in the honorable mention. But one good year where we have other veteran type players that have been doing it year in and year out. I'm not saying there isn't some value from the kid, but that's a little bit more of a risky move when we can go with guys like Shea Theodore at 5. Thomas Hertl comes in at 4 for me, Steele. I do think that this is a player with a boost in getting that power play one time is one of the caveats that made me include him here. It looks like he's going to get to play with Mitch and Jack Eichel on that top line unit, and that makes it very attractive for me, and I'll leave it at this. Last year, almost 100 hits. Nearly 60 block shots, chipping in with 20 penalty minutes as well. When you compare that to others around this kind of draft area, the peripherals are pretty solid for Thomas Hertl. Hit me with him at 4, but I don't blame you if Mark Stone is your guy at number 4 either.
Yeah, I probably should have Hertl at number 4. Again, the reason why I don't have him here is I'm not a huge fan of his drop-off and average time on ice. He went from playing over 20 minutes with the San Jose Sharks, and again, when he got traded there, 6 games in Vegas, he was getting 17 and a half minutes of average ice time. This last season, 73 games, he's down to just 17 minutes and 7 seconds of average ice time. Even with that being said, he's still bringing a ton of opportunity to when he is on the ice. Not like you said, 100, close to 100 hits, 56 blocks, 177 shots on net, still 61 points. I think he's a perennial 60, 65 point guy, which he has been over the last 3 to 4 seasons in the National Hockey League. So he probably should be at number 4 again, but I went with Mark Stone, a guy who has pretty much been a point per game player every single season, regardless of how many games he's been playing. 67 in 66 games last year, 53 and 56 the year before that, 38 and 43. Again, the amount of games this guy's played, I mean, you could almost fit an entire 82 game regular season in the last 4 years for this guy. So he has struggled alongside Shea Theodore with some injuries. I think, to me, though, when I look at Mark Stone, he is one of the most underrated two-way forwards in the game, especially in fantasy hockey. He's not going to win your league alone, but he will quietly do everything while your opponents sleep on him. So I look at him. He's great for plus-minus leagues, takeaway categories, deep formats. A healthy Stone for me, again, is a point-per-game player, especially on that top line now. With Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, Dorofeyev, Hertl, that top 6 is absolutely elite. So if Stone can play close to 82 games, I believe he can still put up to close to 82 points. That brings his fantasy value up, in my opinion. He's still averaging over 19 minutes of average ice time as well, which is 2 minutes more than Hertl, even though maybe Hertl fills out those peripheral categories a little bit better. I went with Stone at number 4. I'm comfortable and confident with this pick.
Let's talk about the top three. Let's talk about how this team will finish perhaps next year, Steele. I'm ready for draft season. We're going to continue to get you guys to do the same in preparation to dominate your leagues. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. You ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. In addition to managing your money, you start building your wealth. Make sure you tap into Monarch Money today. There's specific categories, takeout, subscription, highlighting all of your spending in one place so you know where your cash is going. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day, especially in the month of August. We appreciate you out there. We love you out there.
It's true.
Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review for your boys here, Flip Livingstone and Steele Roden. Flip, over to you, my friend. You got Hurdle at number 4. I got Stone at number 4. Who do you have at number 3? Because I have a feeling that it might be a goaltender in the blue paint.
I think it should be Aiden Hill. And not only did he have the best year of his career last year, we alluded to the main point that's really making him an attractive goaltender just before the break. The addition of Mitch Marner to this team's overall attack is huge. This brings another wrinkle to their offensive unit that truly, I feel, balances it out nicely. You look at the lines here, Steele, and even in the bottom 6, you have a third line right now that's being made up of William Karlsson, Riley Smith, and Brendan Saad. Doesn't jump off the page fantasy-wise, but in terms of propping up a really good now top 6 forward group, now what I'm trying to get at is we knew the strength of this team was their blue line. The forward group now has a really elite piece into the mix, making it a really good season upcoming, I would say, for the goaltenders in Vegas. And right now, there is no veteran backup. Ilya Samsonov is not under contract. It's looking like they might run out the season with Akira Schmid. That is another angle that might boost into this guy playing even more games. I could project him up northward of 55 plus starts, maybe even 60, and that means even more value. Taking the numbers to Steele, tied for 7th in the NHL in shutout. He was 6th in the NHL with a 2.47 goals against average. This is a good goalie. Underrated? Doesn't matter anymore, because when you're looking at this group in front of him that really should contend for the first spot in that division and one of the top few in the NHL, that means wins. You just mentioned the stats, and that means a really good goaltender who I think comes third off the board in terms of Vegas Golden Knights targets.
Yeah, I think so as well. I have him at number 3. And when you look at his calm demeanor, his consistent ability to put up wins now, he's criminally underrated. You don't notice him until you realize he saved your week. And just 2 seasons ago, a career high 915 save percentage, a Stanley Cup champion, projected to do another 50 to 55 games, which he just accomplished for the first time in his career this season, or this past season. 32, 13, and 5. A 906 save percentage, a 2.47 goals against average. I'm going to project him for a little bit of a bounce back. I expect him to be somewhere around the 910 save percentage. Again, somewhere around the 2.47, 2.50 goals against average. But I believe the save percentage will go up. And there is going to be a little bit more difficulty on the – it's very strong blue line still. But again, they still lost Alex Pietrangelo. It's going to be a change for this blue line.
Good point.
Again, even though it's one player, it is a very important piece for this Golden Knights organization. Again, projected to start another 50 to 55 games, whether you have Schmid or a Samsonov as the 1B option. Not the flashiest, but he is one of the most reliable goaltenders out there, especially with the organization he is playing for right now. Big game goalie, came up huge in the playoffs as well. Still has a little bit of that swagger. So for me, Aiden Hill comes in at the number 3 position. I think when you look at Aiden Hill, this is a goaltender that, again, I think I've said this multiple times now. It is a broken record effect, but Aiden Hill could be one of those goaltenders that falls into the 0G strategy if you want to. I believe Aiden Hill should be drafted somewhere in the 9th to 10th round, maybe a little bit earlier, depending on how quickly goaltenders are getting drafted in your league.
Yep.
Where he's currently projected on the Daily Faceoff, Matt Larkin's top 300 ranking. He is number 73 on this list. Might be a little bit too high. I would maybe go drop him down to the, anywhere between 80th and 90th, but very close. And I think that's where Aiden Hill should be getting drafted.
And I'm glad you mentioned that list, because now we're kind of using both the Daily Faceoff list and NHL.com's top 200 list as a little bit of a comparison. So Hill on NHL.com comes in at 126th overall. So I think he falls somewhere perhaps in between those two rankings.
Exactly.
In terms of the other players we spoke about, Steele, Mark Stone lands 90th on Matt Larkin's list and 128th on NHL.com. Shea Theodore, 107th on Matt Larkin's list, 100th on NHL.com. So I think we're pretty close with where we're putting these players. Bottom line is, when you look at this team's statistics last season, elite power play numbers, I believe they were third or second in the NHL, second best power play unit in the NHL last year, Steele, clicking at 28.3%. We know that elite teams that win championships, and teams that carry elite level fantasy pieces have good penalty kill and power play units. However, the penalty kill was a bit of an enigma for this club. They sit down near the bottom of the NHL, killing penalties only at 75% efficiency. So something's going to have to tighten up there if this team wants to get by the Dallas Stars, Colorado Avalanche, Edmonton Oilers of the Western Conference and return to a Stanley Cup final. However, it's going to run through Aiden Hill, however you slice it. It will, I think, also run through their new talisman up front. They swung for the fences. They get Mitch Marner, Steele. What's your take on it? We'll talk about it now. We'll talk about it again after the break with Jack Eichel at number 1. We're sticking to our guns with Jack at number 1 here. However, what do you think happens with Mitch? This has been a very hot topic question. You and I haven't really spoken about it. Hit me with your take. 100-plus points, in and out, just like we expect from Mitch, or what's your take on what you see from number 16 now in Vegas?
I see back-to-back 100-plus point seasons, and I believe I said that this could be a year where Jack Eichel puts up triple digits as well. Now that Marner is his right wing on that
biscuit
top
feeder.
Line. Biscuit feeder, visionary, magician with the puck. It's funny that we went from just doing a Toronto Maple Leafs episode straight to the Vegas Golden Knights. The coincidence is uncanny in this sense. But look, to me, I look at Mitch Marner, I look at Jack Eichel, and it really depends on where you're drafting. If you're anywhere between the 12th to 16th spot in your league, and that's your draft position. If I'm there personally, I'm taking Jack Eichel, and then I'm hoping Mitch Marner is right there for when I swing back in the second round. Wow. If I'm the 16th spot and they are still available, I'm going back to back Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner.
That would be juicy.
Confident and comfortable I am with these two players right now, because I look at Mitch Marner, and we'll talk about it more after the break. But he has averaged over 100 points, or he's been on pace for over 100 points in 3 of his last 4 full seasons. He's not a big hitter, but he leads your team in assists, power play points, and zone entries. He's slotting on the top line next to Jack Eichel, so you can expect 20-plus power play points easy. I think that even can get up to 30. He's been extremely durable. He's played at least 75 games in 6 of the last 8 seasons, and just as the way he elevated the Leafs top line for years, he's now in a top-tier setup man in Vegas, right alongside guys like Jack Eichel, Tomas Hertl, Pavel Dorofeyev, Mark Stone, and anybody who plays in that top 6. I'm going to throw Ivan Barbashev as well. So I look at Mitch Marner. I think back-to-back 100-plus point seasons is definitely in consideration and potentially going to happen once again. And I can't wait for this draft to start, because I'm looking forward to potentially having both Marner and Eichel on my team.
Some more details to come, I'm sure, as we see these guys actually get on the ice together. You and I will continue to break down all the line rush combos, injuries, and news that comes out of camp, so you guys have your finger on the pulse. Lastly, Steele, before we get to break, Mitch Marner came in on Matt Larkin's list at 13, 1 spot behind Jack Eichel. So if you're able to swerve back around and get these two, that could be huge. The other angle here is, quickly, some would say that Mitch is value goes down. Our point total takes a hit slightly because of a lesser of a supporting cast. I don't think the Maple Leafs top 6 is
I
that
don't buy
much
that.
better than Vegas is. I think they're very similar in terms of what they can throw out there. Yeah, Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel are different players, but I'm still going to say Mitch has another good opportunity to put up triple-digit points. So I'm with you. Let's talk about the guy who will be helping him get there right after the break.
Jack Eichel, the superstar needed in Vegas. That is coming up next on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We appreciate you out there. We love you out there. Continue to smash the subscribe button. Leave the comments, any questions you have on the YouTube channel. I just had a really good conversation with one of our listeners out there talking about Nick Robertson's fantasy value after that Leafs episode we just did. So Flip, he wants your opinion as well. Let's get on it. Again, fantasy value going for Nick Robertson right now. You know how I feel about that player, but that is for another time as well.
Yes.
Jack Eichel, number one on the list, number one in my heart. I love this player so much. How do you feel about him going into the season now with Mitch Marner as his teammate?
I think we need to get the obvious, negative or the one point that you can say about this player out of the way, that he has yet to play a full 82 game season in his career. Couple seasons ago, 67. Last season, 63. And just this previous year, 77. So you put that aside, and Jack Eichel is a top 10 fantasy player, not just where he falls right now in like kind of that 13th, 14th, 15th slot in a lot of rankings. He's just that good, Steele. This guy's release is criminally underrated and so lethal. He really picks corners with his shooting. I would say his shooting deserves a lot more credit out there. And now you have someone that is elite, dazzling with the puck at times with Mitch. This could mean fool's gold here, a gold rush in terms of, or should I say goal rush for Jack Eichel. And I don't think this is as simple as just putting a good player with another good player. You're putting you're putting a gunslinger with the guy feeding you the ammo. It's a prototypical playmaker with a shooter, and you prop it up with a really good defensive back end that we alluded to. This could be huge for Mitch Marner as well. Let's see them play together, right? Because we know that we've seen a ton of moves over the last couple of years that we love on paper. We think it's going to mean fantasy gold. And for the most part, I think we've been right with predicting which ones will go well and which ones haven't. They still need to play together, Steele. They still need to click. But if everything looks like how these two players have been, and when you're especially even looking at Eichel last year, coming off a career-high 94-point season, Steele, plus 32, 230-plus shots, then you get really excited about what this might mean for Jack Eichel, a player that I know you have stuck by year in and year out, regardless of those injuries. You're on mute.
Again, once a week for your boy over here, the mute button.
We got it out of the way.
But I have stood behind Jack Eichel. And Eichel, to me, is the Vegas franchise centerpiece, regardless of them trading for Mitch Marner, regardless of them bringing in Noah Hannafin, Shea Theodore, who we've talked about, all these trades they made over the last few seasons. Jack Eichel is the centerpiece of this team and a fantasy stud in the making who has finally found his rhythm after years of injury woes. And with now Marner in the mix, to me, like we just said, this might be the year he breaks 100 points. He's got elite tools, size, skating, a wrister that breaks goalie spirits. Posted 94 points, a career high in 77 games last year. The power play one usage with him, Marner, Theodore, whoever else is, it's an absolute power play cheat code. And he shoots the puck a ton. Every single season, practically, he has put over anywhere between 230 to 300 shots. Again, it depends on how many games he actually plays. The hits and blocks are just a bonus. To me, I project Jack Eichel, especially now with Mitch Marner, who is a visionary on the ice, who can really just make plays out of nothing in the offensive zone. I can see a potential 40-goal season for Jack Eichel. I'm, going to be a little bit more conservative. I'm going to project him to have 35 goals and 65 assists. So he does crack the 100-point threshold right there. And I think Mitch Marner is going to be a huge reason for this as well. I see another career year from Jack Eichel. I expect some Hart Trophy buzz as well if he can crack that century mark. Top line center, power play quarterback, multi-cat contributor. Lock him in as a late first round pick. I know maybe that's a little bit of a reach for some people. I think if you're in a 16-team league, he is definitely a first-round draft pick.
What it comes down to for me, once again, Steele, is let's see what they do together. Let's see also, remember this. This team finished with a plus 56 goal differential last year. 29-9-3 at home. One of the best home teams. We know Vegas is like notoriously hard to go into that barn and get wins. They are also a good road team, and they're very well coached. They have an absolute whiz in the front office with Kelly McCrimmon. Front to back, team is built, ready for the Stanley Cup. They're going to have to go through some really good teams in that Pacific Division, in that Western Conference, and I'm very much ready to see that test go down. However, Jack Eichel right there in that mix, 10 to 12, first 10 to 12 players off the board. If you get him, he's going to have a big year.
Yes, he is. I am so excited to watch them play together this season. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Let us know how you feel about this top 5 targets list from the Vegas Golden Knights. For your second listen out there, please check out the Locked On NHL Podcast because there is no off season. They are bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most to you with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And once again, let us know how you're doing this summer with those summer bets. Leave the comments below on the YouTube channel, and we shall see you back here again on Wednesday.
Peace.